Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So it's Tell the Truth / Victory Monday here after Week 2's 21-18 win over the Giants. Commanders are now 1-1 on the season, and damn it, it feels good. Feels good to be back in the victory circle. Haven't been here in quite some time. The last time the Commanders won an NFL game was in Week 9 of 2023 against the New England Patriots on the road. And so we haven't tasted victory in quite some time. So it feels good to snap the losing streak, to get back to winning ways. Hopefully this is something that we'll be able to do multiple times over this season. But it's good to get the first one out of the way for Adam Peters, for Dan Quinn, for all of these players that put in all of this work. For us as fans, we're sick and tired of losing to the Giants. And I don't give a shit how it looks, what happened, them not having a kicker, this, that, those things happened, and we won, right? And I don't give a shit who's complaining about what, right? I love it. But it is Tell the Truth Monday, okay? While it is Victory Monday, we still got some truths to get to the bottom of. And I want to start by dispelling some misnomers that are being floated out there and thrown out there by fans. After the game, one of the biggest talking points was, where's Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne? We need to trade those guys. They suck. They're not doing anything. And I was like, y'all chill. God damn. This is the shit y'all do. Y'all get fixated on something, and y'all like a damn dog trying to get a bone. Y'all just can't let this shit go, right? And so all we heard yesterday, after a win, I may add, after a damn win, I don't give a shit what it looked like. It was a win. All I heard was bitching and complaining about different things, but nothing louder than Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. And I said, okay, I'm going to go and watch. Because when I'm watching the TV copy, when I'm watching the game, I'm not focused in on the defensive line, like in particular. I'm just watching the entire screen. You know, I'm watching the routes develop. I'm watching the quarterback in his drop. I'm watching the defensive line, but I'm not specifically honing in. And that's the only way you'll really be able to know what someone is or isn't doing, is you got to specifically watch. So I went back. And the good thing about watching the D-line or the offensive line, for that matter, is you don't need the all 22s for that. You can watch the TV copy. TV copy's available right now. If you watched it on DVR, you recorded it, you can go back and play it. It's there for you to see. And what I went back and watched was what I thought I was going to see. But I didn't want to say that to you guys yesterday because I didn't know. And I didn't want to just throw out some random excuse as to why there was limited to no production from the two of those guys yesterday. But in fact, the Giants, very smart team, they double teamed Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne essentially the entire game. Okay. Like Dexter Lawrence didn't do anything in the game yesterday. You know why? Because we rarely gave him an opportunity to be singled up. Do you hear Giants fans clamoring for Dexter Lawrence to be traded today? Cut him. He stinks. Trade him. Do you hear that shit? No, because they're no dummies. All right? Stop being ridiculous. Okay? The Giants had 4 hands on Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen on just about every single snap. Really, who you should be upset about and who you should be frustrated with. And look, you knew this going into the season, so I don't even know why you would get upset about this. Get upset that we're not getting any pressure off the edge. It's the same shit I used to say about Montez Sweat and Chase Young. If the 2 defensive tackles are being double teamed, that means you're singled up on the outside. Go win. Go and win. If you can't win on the edges, it allows them to double team with impunity. It allows them to double the 2 defensive tackles with no penalty because they're not going to pay for it on the edge. there were a couple of rushes where Dorrance Armstrong almost hit home. And I'm here to tell you, every time they singled up Daron Payne, he got pressure. He got into the backfield. The Cleveland Farrell sack, right? Go back and watch who got the pressure that led to Cleveland Farrell cleaning it up and getting the sack. Go watch. On the play action fake deep shot, the second one to Malik Neighbors over the middle of the field that wasn't close, go see who got pressure that didn't allow Daniel Jones to follow through on that throw. Go watch. There weren't many opportunities singled up for Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen in this game. Allen made a nice play on a screen where he retraced his steps, go and went and made a tackle. Of the two of them, I'm going to stand 10 toes down firmly for Daron Payne. He continues to be a presence when the opportunity is presented to him. I'm putting the onus on this staff to get them one-on-one opportunities. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the twists and the stunts and the games up front that I was expecting to see with this group. I haven't seen any exotic looks that single up a Daron Payne. I did see him rush off the edge once in a third down situation, and he still got double teamed. Okay, I still haven't seen them create the one-on-one matchups that I'm looking for them to help create for a guy that can win when he gets one-on-one, and he's shown that each of the first 2 games of the season. Problem is, he's not getting singled up enough. That's on the staff. Another misnomer, or I want to say this is a misnomer because someone had said Jeremy Chin stinks. I'm not here to validate that, but I am here to tell you he needs to play better. He had a recovery of a fumble yesterday. You know, he was just in the right place, right time. You could have replaced 11 with 20 or, you know, any other number, 35, 54. You could have replaced it with any other number and the same result would have happened. It would have been a fumble recovery. All he had to do was fall on the ball, and he did. But he's missing entirely too many tackles in space. He's got to be better, okay? I agree that he needs to play better. Somebody said Nick Allegretti stunk yesterday. 67 stinks. We still need a left guard. I vehemently disagree. Couldn't disagree with you more. I thought Nick Allegretti played just fine. And I thought this line overall played just fine for the most part. You know who I was not impressed with? Brandon Coleman. And it's the same issue he had at TCU. He does not sustain blocks. He does a great job of initiating contact, getting into the space of a rusher, and standing them up initially, but he does not sustain, and he loses late, and he gives up pressure late. And he did that twice in this game, one leading to a sack, and if not for a penalty on the Giants, we would have had to punt. He hasn't blown me away in his opportunities to this point. I'm more comfortable with Cornelius Lucas at left tackle than I am Brandon Coleman at left tackle. But they're going to continue to give him opportunities. I want to continue to see him grow. But he's going to have to sustain his blocks through the whistle. The initial contact and the initial pass set is great. But it's that second effort by the edge rusher that usually nets them a win over Brandon Coleman and pressure on the quarterback. He's got to clean that up. That was one of my knocks on him coming out of TCU, and I saw it twice in this game that led to pressures. One even led to a sack. One even led to a sack that did not count, luckily enough for us. Joe Witt Jr. has to be better. I'm putting the onus on him. You can't rush 3 and play man coverage behind it. I don't even know why you would do that. Not after you've already been beaten on the same concept twice already. I don't really understand the reasoning behind that. He's got to be better as a defensive coordinator. I was not impressed by the game plan. I was not impressed by his play calling. And I want to watch the film, see the all-22s, but I don't think it's going to change the way that I feel. I've had a chance to watch this game several times now, and I think I feel confident in saying that the defensive calls weren't good enough. They weren't challenging. They didn't force Daniel Jones to hold it a tick longer. It's man coverage. You had one play, we rushed 3 and got pressure with 3. And because it was man coverage, Daniel Jones was still able to get rid of the football. It's not good enough. If it was zone, he would have held it a tick longer. Dorrance Armstrong would have got to him and sacked him. With all that said, I felt, much like last week, I felt more encouraged coming away from the film, right? Or in this case, the rewatching the game again. Man, Frankie Louvu was everywhere in this game. Frankie Louvu was fun to watch in this game. He was flying around. That's the Frankie Louvu I fell in love with in Carolina. And he's just getting started. He's just getting started. He led the team in tackles in this game with 11. So in each of the first 2 games, the linebackers have led the way in tackles, which is the way it's supposed to be. And Wagner was very active again with another tackle for loss in this game. He was active as well. He even had a play where he took out 3 of his own teammates, I think. On one of those third down shallow crosses, he tried to get every single commander and set a pick for the Giants on that play. It was comical watching him just bump into commander after commander. Like, Bobby, get out of the way, bro. Damn. Right? But all in all, it was a really solid performance. And there's things to build off of. Again, things that need to be improved. We're going to talk about some of those things here as we get to our keys to victory from week 2's performance. And let's talk about it. So the first thing, let's start with the offensive side of the football. The first key to victory was protect the Duke and get playmakers the ball. They did both of those things. So they got a check mark from me and a point there. They didn't turn the ball over for the second consecutive week. They weren't even really close to turning it over this week. Maybe the Jaden throw to Zach Ertz that was almost picked off, but Ertz was able to wrestle it away from Jason Pinnock. I really blame Ertz for not coming back to the ball. It was kind of just fluttering because Jaden got hit as he was throwing that football. It is kind of fluttering in the air, and Zach is just waiting on the ball to fall into his arms instead of going and attacking the football. But a good job of him wrestling it away and taking it away from the defender. Outside of that play, there really weren't any, balls that were in danger of being picked off or, fumble. I don't even think we put the ball on the carpet at all. So they took care of the Duke. They protected the Duke and then get to playmakers the ball. Ertz touched it a team high 4 times. Or excuse me, Terry touched it a team high 6 times. Right? Ertz touched it 4 times. Noah Brown touched it 3 times. Olamide Zaccheaus touched it a couple of times. De'Ami Brown touched it a couple of times. Brian Robinson Jr. touched it a bunch of times. Austin Eckler touched it probably 10 or 11 times. So your best players need to touch it, and they did in this game for the most part. I'd like to see them. They tried to get the ball to Luke once on a play that Jaden, for whatever reason, just turned it down. It wasn't going to gain much anyway, which is why I think he turned it down. But still, it's better than you taking a sack, which is what he ultimately did on that play. Just get rid of it, right? Let Luke figure it out. But all in all, they did what they needed to do there, and I was pleased with that. Finish drives with points. And then in all caps and parentheses, I went score points. That is exactly the definition of score points and finish drives with points. They did exactly what I asked them to do. I should have been more specific, okay? And I should have said finish drives with points, preferably touchdowns, right? Obviously, next week, one of the keys to the game will be red zone efficiency. I didn't think I needed to say that after week 1 when we were 100% efficient, 3 of 3. But after going 0 of 6, I think I need to go back to that. But I asked them to finish drives with points. I said score points because the Giants aren't going to score a bunch of points. And they did exactly that. So, of course, they got a check mark there and another point. Can't be mad when they do exactly what I asked them to do, which was finish drives with points. Albeit field goals, they did finish all their drives with points. Here was a big one in yesterday's game. Avoid penalties and mistakes. In parentheses, I put setbacks. Boy, we had a lot of those, right? Obviously, you get no points for this. We did not take care of business in this department. We had a season high 10 penalties off the heels of having 7 the week prior against Tampa. So in 2 weeks, we've been penalized 17 times. That's not good. That's not good at all. We got to clean up the mistakes. We got to clean up the penalties. We're not good enough to have those mistakes and overcome them. And it showed in the red zone. And, going back and watching made it even more painful because we were inside the Giants' 5-yard line on 2 different occasions and had penalties negate drives, push us back, and ultimately force us to settle for field goals. You just can't do that to yourself. You can't do it, man. And so we got to clean that shit up. But luckily enough for us, there were no turnovers or anything like that that hurt us, just the penalties, and we were still able to get points off of those mistakes still. But we got to clean up all of those mistakes. We should have blown the Giants out. Let's be honest with ourselves. That's the part that's probably the most disappointing in this victory is that it shouldn't have been as close. It made the Giants fans feel like they were able to, talk about what would have happened if they had a kicker or this or that. And it really wasn't any of that shit. You got lucky because of the penalties, because you couldn't stop us on offense. We stopped ourselves. And that's the most frustrating part, is if we just didn't have those mistakes, we would have scored 3 or 4 touchdowns bare minimum, and we would have won this game going away instead of having to eke out a 3-point victory. But whatever the case may be, I'll take it any way I can get it. We just got to clean up those mistakes. You much rather be doing that after a win than talking about being 0-2 and trying to figure out how to clean up all of these penalties. Doing it at 1-1 feels a hell of a lot better. And me dressed in white, feeling heavenly today, feels a lot better than dressed in all black like the Omen and trying to figure out how do we get our first win of the season on the road at Cincinnati on Monday Night Football next week. Feels a lot better. It's a night and day difference between the two, right? And then the last thing on the offensive side of the football was set the tone early. And they got a point for that as well. They set the tone early offensively, went right down the field, should have scored. I mean, hell, you can't do it much better than a 16-play drive that eats up almost 10 minutes of the clock, except for finishing it with a touchdown, which was the disappointing part, is you do all of that, and that kind of felt like a win for the Giants. You allow them to go for it on 4th down, convert. You allow them to keep the ball for almost 2/3 of the first quarter, and they only come away with a field goal. If you're the Giants, that's a win, right? Because normally a drive that it extends that long, that many plays, usually ends up in the end zone. And for us to only get 3, it sucked, but it did set the tone for the day that we were going to move the football and the Giants couldn't stop us. And that was established on the first drive all the way to the very end of the game. So on the offensive side, 3 points total, which is a far cry from the 0 we had a week ago. You get to the defensive keys to victory, and the first thing on the ledger was stop the run. We did not do that at all in this game. Very disappointed in the run defense. Devin Singletary almost had 100 yards by himself. The Giants rushed for over 120 yards in this game, much of it being done by Devin Singletary. I think he had 95 yards or so in this game, which is inexcusable. It just no excuses for that. Missed tackles, two missed tackles on the first touchdown of the game by the Giants on the Singletary run. Couple, missed tackles on a run up the middle. You had, I think, Quan Martin come up and miss. You had another defender miss. He spun out of one and kept his feet. You had another run off to the left side where Jeremy Chin, who I said he has to be better. This shit wasn't good enough. He missed a tackle, and then he gets to the outside. But I think that ultimately was the play where Benjamin St-Juste was able to force the fumble, and then Chin was able to recover. But just too many hits in the run game for Devin Singletary. I didn't like that shit at all. We got to clean that up. That's not a good representation of who I think we are from a run defense standpoint. Eliminate explosives and coverage busts. We got a check mark there. So that's, a point. We did a really good job of really not giving up too many explosives. A lot of their big plays came after, yards after contact, right? Where it's a Malik Neighbors catch and run where he breaks the tackle. I think the shallow crosses on the mesh concepts, that's to me an error on the defensive coordinator. That's where you got to own up and tell your guys on Tell the Truth Monday, that's on me. That's a bad call. I put us in a tough spot. I rushed 3 and dropped 8 and played man-to-man coverage. There's not even 8 eligibles on the field. If anything, and you're going to play man-to-man, why not double Malik Neighbors? You're rushing 3. There's 8 defenders. They can only have a possible 5 eligibles out on the route. I don't understand how you have 8 guys in coverage. It just is it's almost unfathomable to me that you rush 3 and you're not playing some form of zone, right? In that situation. And you allow them who they already had ran a mesh concept, and you allow them to run another mesh concept and get open on the exact same play. I mean, how much easier do you want to make it for Daniel Jones? So, while there weren't really any coverage busts, and there weren't too many explosives. The play calling could have been better to help us generate more pressure and take away some of the plays that the Giants did make in this game, right? But all in all, I thought it was a solid effort in those 2 departments. Eliminate the explosives and eliminate the coverage bust, right, from a week ago. The next key to victory defensively was tackle, and they did not tackle. I just talked about that. It was a problem for me. I was not happy with what I saw from them from a tackling standpoint. And so they just got to get better, man. And Dan Quinn, he tried to downplay it in his presser today. He said he talked about liking guys' energy and thought they played more like, the style of football that they want to play. He said they're not there yet. It's not a finished product, but it was a lot better than the week before. I'd agree with that. It was better than Tampa, but Tampa was a low bar. It was horrible in week 1. So, of course, they were going to be better in week 2. And they were, but it wasn't significantly better to me. It wasn't nearly the type of level and the standard that I'm looking for them to set as to how we do business. So they got to tackle better. It was not good enough. Percy Butler missed a tackle on that first touchdown run. I want to say Jeremy Chin did as well. There's another one where Quan Martin, I think, missed a tackle. And the one up the middle where he bounced off and then spun and then kept his balance. And obviously, Michael Davis was the worst culprit of the day. He was horrendous with the 3 missed tackles on Malik Neighbors on the hitches. We had a special teams play where the guy that they brought up, Bobby Price, was out there on the edge, missed the tackle, allowed the returner to get all the way out to about the 35, 40-yard line or so, gave the Giants great field position. So it was not a great tackling day, period, end of discussion. They got to be better. And then lastly, the last defensive key to victory for me was ball is life and start fast defensively. They got a half point here on this one because we did create the turnover. We did have ball is life, right? But we did not start fast defensively. We kicked a field goal on our opening drive and allowed the Giants to march right back down the field and respond with a touchdown of their own. And I said this yesterday. One of the most disappointing parts of this game in particular was not being able to take advantage of the fact that the Giants did not have a field goal kicker. You needed to put them in 4th and 8, 4th and 9 type situations where they're in no man's land and have to go for it. That could have set up so many great field position opportunities unless the Giants decided to then punt the football and try to pin us, which it wouldn't have mattered on this day because they couldn't stop us. So we were going to just take the ball 97 yards and drive it, or in the case of the shit that we were doing, if we were at our own 3, we would have probably drove it 90 yards, had a penalty, and had to settle for a field goal. But either way, we would have still gotten in the scoring range because they couldn't stop us. But you needed to make them have to make a tough decision on 4th and 7, 4th and 8, 4th and 9. You don't want to go for it on 4th and 8. It's not a advantageous situation for you. But we never put them in those positions because on 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 8, we kept giving up first downs. And or they would be 1 or 2 yards, 3 yards short of the sticks. Now it's easy on 4th and 4 to decide to go for it, right? It's easy on 4th and 3 or 4th and 2 to go for it versus 4th and 8, 4th and 9, 4th and 10, 4th and 11, 4th and 12, which we had them in those situations on 3rd downs, and we did not, make them pay, right? And that was probably the most frustrating part for me is we didn't take advantage of them not having a place kicker. We let them score 3 touchdowns as opposed to forcing them to have to make a tough decision. Do we bring Gano out even though we know the hamstring is bothering him? Do we Jamie Gillen back out there and have him give it another shot. I would have loved to have seen what they would have done if we would have put them in some uncomfortable situations, but we never did. And part of that was we didn't tackle well. We didn't have, I thought, good calls, responsible calls on third down that allow us to get off the field. And we didn't make the plays, in those situations to set the Giants up in a tough spot. So credit the Giants for, making plays. And they went back to the well over and over again. Malik Neighbors had 18 targets in this game. They only threw the football to 4 receivers in this game. Wan'Dale Robinson, Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and the running back, Devin Singletary. They threw it to 4 guys in this game. That's it. And we let them get away with that shit. That's nauseating. It really, truly is. So when it's all said and done and you tally up the keys to victory and the points from those keys, 4.5 is solid. It's really solid. You can win football games with 4.5, but we got to be better. We got to be better. I want the total up to 5.5, 6. That's where I'm really comfortable, and I'm like, we should win doing that. You can get away with, literally, 4.5 is you can get away with that, which is what we did. But you're not going to win, a ton of games with a 4.5. We're going to have to be better than that. So, just another side note real quick. Matter of fact, I can save it because we're going to get to that conversation here as we go to In Other News. Dan Quinn had his Victory Monday presser. We'll talk about what was said there. But before we do that, I want to take a look at the snap counts from week number 2 and what that looked like on both sides of the football. So let's do that right now. Offensively, we had 72 snaps on the day. As you can see, most of the linemen played all of the snaps. Cosme did come out for that one snap when he went down with the eye injury. Returned very quickly. Same can be said for Jaden Daniels. After having the wind knocked out of him, was out for one snap, returned fairly quickly. Terry McLaurin, of the non-quarterback offensive linemen, played the most snaps for the second consecutive week. 92% of the snaps, 66 total snaps, had 8 targets in the game, 6 catches. We're trending in the right direction now. We just got to get him some bigger plays. We also had one of his catches negated and nullified by a penalty on a illegal man downfield on an RPO. So Terry could have even had, another catch and more yards, but I just like the fact that they got him the football. Now it's about getting him the football down the field, right? And that'll come in time. Cornelius Lucas played 50 snaps, 69% of the snaps. Obviously splitting time with Brandon Coleman, as I just told you. He played 22 snaps. It wasn't terrible. Right? I don't want you to think that Brandon Coleman stinks. I just wasn't impressed. All right? I was not impressed. There were things that he did that I liked. I love his movement skills. I think he has really sound technique. And I just think he needs to finish. He just needs to finish plays. And when I mean finish, I'm talking about his pass sets, not run-wise. De'Ami Brown finally got involved. I'm going to say this about De'Ami. De'Ami is the best wide receiver screen guy on the team. To me, if you're throwing a wide receiver screen, it should go to De'Ami Brown. He catches it, he hits it hard and with reckless abandon, which is what you're supposed to do on a wide receiver screen. You're supposed to hit a wide receiver screen almost like a kickoff return or a punt return where you just go balls to the wall as fast as you can and let the chips fall where they may. And we got a lot of guys that hesitate when they catch the football. They're looking to see where they can avoid contact. And De'Ami's like, to hell with that. I'm going to catch this bitch and go up the field. And on that opening drive, De'Ami's, wide receiver screen was a thing of beauty. Almost popped for a touchdown, right? I think they need to get him the ball in that setting a little bit more. Zach Ertz, 47 snaps. He was huge in this game. Led the team in receiving yards, as we know, and he had a massive impact. Brian Robinson Jr. played 43 snaps, and you can see the rest of the names here. Noah Brown only played 20 snaps, and boy, were they an impactful 20 snaps with his 3 grabs and 56 yards on the day, including that big catch and run on the final drive. He was huge, and he's only going to be better for us as he continues to get reps in this offense. He's already our second best receiver, and he just got here. That tells you about the state of our room, but it also tells you how good Noah Brown can be. And as of right now, I'm thinking we got to re-sign this guy in the offseason. But it's early. It's a small sample size. But right now, even with us wanting to be aggressive in free agency or the draft or both, I think Noah Brown is a part of the solution, not the problem moving forward, right? So love the fact that he was able to come in and immediately have an impact. You know, the two tight ends, Ben Sinnott and John Bates, the other two, I thought they blocked really well in this game. And I think part of the reason the run game has been so effective, or was at least this particular week, is because those guys are doing a hell of a job blocking. Sinnott had the false start, and that sucked on the opening drive. And I've never seen Jaden Daniels more animated than when he was coming off the field, kind of fussing at Ben Sinnott for moving and negating that opportunity to score on a fourth down. But Ben Sinnott was really good in the block game, and I think eventually we're going to see him touch the football, right? Sneak him into the flats, toss him a bone, and really start to get him involved in this offense. We got so many different things that we haven't even tapped into offensively, and the fact that we still have been so effective moving the football, I'm encouraged because we've got so many things that we still haven't touched yet, that we haven't tapped into, that we can get to, and we still are having tremendous amounts of success, right? So that's the offensive side of the football from a snap counts perspective. Now let's get to the defensive side. And the first thing that I want to focus in on, we had 56 total snaps. As you can see, Jeremy Chin, Bobby Wagner, and Benjamin St. Juste were the only players to play all 56 snaps. Frankie Louvu was out for one snap. But what I want to focus on before I get to that, Payne and Allen, last week we were complaining that they didn't play enough snaps. They were in the 50s last week from a percentage standpoint. This week, up to 73%. That's where they should be, right there. I don't think they need to be really any higher than that. 41 snaps out of 56 is perfectly fine for me. And I think you're going to see that number kind of stay there because of the presence of the guy that I want to talk about, and that's Johnny Newton all the way towards the bottom. You look there, you see Johnny Newton played 12 snaps for 21%. I liked what I saw from Johnny Newton. He's going to be a really good fixture on this defensive line. Once he gets acclimated, gets comfortable, I saw some spirited rushes from him. And I think he's gonna win some one-on-one matchups. And because teams don't really know who he is right now, he's gonna get one-on-one. And I want to see him continue to get those opportunities to rush. He's gonna make it feel a lot less obvious that Payne and Allen aren't on the field. You know, and then there are gonna be some situations where they probably keep all three of them on the field together. But he looked good in some of his rushes, and I think he's gonna be really good for us moving forward. Obviously, Mike Davis had his struggles in the first half. He played 23 snaps before taking a seat and giving way to Noah Igbenogany, who finished up the game with 33 snaps. And I think he's going to be your starter next week against the Cincinnati Bengals, and rightfully so right now. You look at the rest of the guys on this list, nothing really stands out. Everybody played the amount of snaps that they were supposed to play. And so Johnny Newton was the guy that I really wanted to focus on the defensive side. And his 12 snaps, I like what I saw, right? So let's get to Dan Quinn's presser from today, the victory presser, and talk about what was said. DQ did answer as to why Jamin Davis was a healthy scratch. I told you guys I couldn't pinpoint the exact position that they were overcompensating for, but I said, I'm pretty sure they're overcompensating somewhere. That's the only reason that you don't bring Jamin Davis up. And he said they were overcompensating for Johnny Newton. They had Johnny Newton up. They knew that they were only going to play him a certain amount of snaps. And because of that, they still wanted to keep a healthy defensive tackle rotation. And so in order to do that, they needed to elevate a fifth defensive tackle. So essentially, instead of going 5 defensive ends, they went 5 defensive tackles. Normally, they would go 5 defensive ends and 4 defensive tackles. But until Johnny Newton is up to the level that they want him to be at, where he doesn't have a pitch count, they don't feel comfortable not having that 5th defensive tackle up. So to mitigate that, they had to leave Jamin Davis off the active roster on game day. So that was the rationale behind that, which makes sense. I get it. He talked about some of the things that he liked. He said, first of all, they try to stay consistent with Tell the Truth Monday in terms of whether they win or lose. It needs to feel the same because you don't want them to become complacent after a victory. And he's like, guys are more likely to lock in after a loss. And so when you win, guys are feeling good. There's this different type of vibe, and you want them to understand that, no, we still made a ton of mistakes and we got shit to clean up. So it's still Tell the Truth Monday, and we're going to keep it consistent. So he talked about that and them doing that. He talked about, some guys that he thought stuck out. He really highlighted Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, and Frankie Louvu as guys that stuck out to him. Obviously, the running backs stuck out to him as well. He talked about those guys. But he really talked about Louvu and Wagner really playing aggressive and downhill, which you saw. He talked about Louvu's hit on Malik Neighbors on that first catch and run on that first mesh concept where he was able to get open, and Louvu lit him up, and he had to leave the game briefly to get checked because he got lit up. So, and Louvu was hitting dudes. He hit Tyrone Tracy on one play where he just stoned him, right? Louvu was active. Had the play where he was offsides, trying to do the Troy Polamalu type thing where you time it up perfectly. He was just a smidge early. So he was just all over the place. He's like the Tasmanian devil in the game, which I love. That's my Frankie Louvu that I fell in love with in Carolina, the guy that just played with his hair on fire. He talked about, Quan Martin doing a good job playing that middle of the field safety and being where he's supposed to be. He said that's his superpower essentially. And so he talked about that. Obviously, he talked about Jaden's poise and his ability to deliver the football, do the things that he needed to do to give this team a chance. Of course, he talked about Austin Seibert. He said, look, what an incredible start for him. And somebody asked, how long of a leash does he get now with this performance? And it's kind of what I talked about yesterday. I said, a lot of people just said we found our kicker. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I'll say this. He built up some equity, right? And the more of these that you have, the more equity you build up so that if you do have one of those games that's unfortunate, we're willing to say and overlook it or say, hey, you know what? Don't sweat it. We know what you're good for, right? Because you're going to have games where your kicker doesn't make a kick or two. It's human nature. It's a part of the game. You want to minimize how many of those games occur. But the more of these types of performances you get from Austin Seibert, the more likely it is fans are willing, the team is willing, the players are willing, the coaching staff are willing to say, hey, no, it's all good, Austin. You'll get them next time, right? So I can't tell you that we've found our kicker, but we're trending in that direction. Sounds like DQ feels the same way. He talked about some of the defensive, issues, and, he didn't get into specifics. And I thought, I'm hoping that he was a little bit harder on them than he was in the presser, because in the presser, he sounded like he was pleased with some of the things. And I could understand some things him being pleased with, but a lot of that still wasn't to my liking. I think we got to be better in a lot of situations. And tackling is one of those. And he did acknowledge that the tackling wasn't up to par, but he said it was better than week one, which I'm like, duh, it was better than week one. Week one was as bad as it gets. It had to be better. It couldn't be any worse than week one. So that wasn't a sufficient answer for me. But hopefully what he's telling the media and what he's telling his players are two different things, or at least the message is a bit more aggressive and somewhat abrasive. I need guys to be uncomfortable with missing tackles. I need guys to be uncomfortable. And I need the staff to admit that, there were some issues on their part. There were some poor calls in the red zone by Cliff Kingsbury, just like there were some poor calls in some critical third downs by Joe Witt Jr. And I need the staff to admit, hey, that's on me. And guess what, guys? It's week 2 of a whole new system for everybody. Players, coaches, everyone. to a man are adjusting to this being brand new. And they're going to be trial and error where you try this out to see if it works. Nope, it didn't work. All right, cool, right? And so now you got to go to the next thing. And that's what they did with Michael Davis. He went from not playing a week ago to starting this game, and they had to find out in the first half, oh, okay, he can't do that. And they had to go back to Noah Igbenogany. So at the end of the day, it's trial and error, right? And they're figuring out what they can get away with, what they can't get away with. And the more reps you get doing this, the better off they're going to be, and the more more data that they're going to collect, and then be able to properly disseminate that information into things that help this team win ball games and be in advantageous positions. I will say Cliff Kingsbury's play calling for the second consecutive week was, well, chef's kiss until we got into the red zone. But again, some of that was hindered by the penalties. All in all, DQ sounded pissed off about the penalties. He was elated about the victory, but he said, you're generally not going to win with 10 penalties. He said, we're lucky to be sitting here at 1-1 and not 0-2 with all the mistakes that we made from a penalty standpoint. Love the fact that we created the turnover. Love the fact that we didn't turn it over ourselves, but we can't have those mistakes. He was upset about the negated kickoff return by Austin Eckler. He said, look, I can deal with penalties that occurred during the play, right? Effort penalties, holding, pass interference, that sort of thing. You don't want them, but it happens in the heat of battle. He said the ones I can't deal with are, the offsides, the false starts, the illegal man downfield, that sort of thing. Like we just got to be smarter, right? Procedurally, we got to be better. So, all in all, you're happy for the win. You're grateful for the victory, but you understand that a lot of things still have to be cleaned up. But it's week 2, and that's what they're working towards. And he said, and I think this was the most profound thing that he said in his presser, and he said it about 2 or 3 times. The biggest thing in the first 4 weeks of the season is who can clean up the mistakes, who can adjust the quickest while not suffering as many losses and lessons to have to do it, right? He said you can learn lessons in a win, right? Meaning you don't have to lose to learn a lesson, okay? Which I think is very important to understand. You don't have to lose a game in order to fix things. You can do that, and I talked about this. It's a lot easier to fix things when you win than when you lose, right? Because if you keep telling us we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong, and you keep making adjustments and you keep fixing this and fixing that, and there's still no results being shown, then what are we doing here, right? Then it starts to fall on deaf ears. So getting a win is very important, and I felt like it was. You could tell listening to the guys talk after the game just how important this one was. And Dan Quinn said last week he was so disappointed in the loss because he wanted it for the players so badly because of how hard they had prepared for week 1, and he felt like they were ready to go, and it sucked when they didn't get it done. And you could tell he was dejected last week. He was pissed, but he was also disappointed. And you could tell it was the direct opposite this week. He was definitely happy to get the win, understanding that it easily could have been a loss, but they were happy that they did just enough to get it done. And so celebrate! We 1-1, and we got the dub over the New York Giants and finally snapped that streak. And now we can move on to the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll have time to discuss that. We'll continue to chew on this Giants game. And DQ said that everything gets pushed back a day because we're playing on Monday. So instead of DQ meeting with the media on Wednesday, Jaden Daniels meeting with the media on Wednesday, that'll be on Thursday. So everything gets pushed back a day, right? So what would be normally Wednesday will be Thursday. What would have normally been Thursday will be Friday, so forth and so forth. So we won't hear from the coordinators until Friday, right? Normally we would hear from Joe Witt Jr. and Cliff Kingsbury on Thursday. So everything gets pushed back a day, extra day of rest on the front end, on the back end, everything's shortened, right? So you got to take advantage of this, get your bodies feeling good, and then understand that you won't get that same amount of rest next week. You'll be on a short week and a quick turnaround as you head to Arizona. So a pivotal stretch of the season here early on in September. You get your first win. Can you find a way to sneak one of these next two on the road and get you to 2-2 out of the gates? You do that, the next stretch of games are very doable, right? Bears and Panthers and the Browns, teams that you can handle if you play better. But you got to find a way to get through this stretch at 2-2 somehow, some way. 2 tough road games coming up, but just enjoy this Giants victory for the next couple of days, right? No rush. No rush. Enjoy this. Savor it. We haven't won a game since week 9 of last season. We haven't won a home game since week 1 of 2023. Enjoy this. Savor it. All right? If last year taught you nothing else, is you just don't know when the next one's coming. Don't assume. Don't expect. Just enjoy. All right? Just enjoy. We're in second place with a chance to be in first depending on what happens tonight with the Eagles. Just enjoy this. This might be the last time we're tied for second place this season, okay? Enjoy it, all right? Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. You know where to find me after tonight's Eagles-Falcons game. Hey, I'll be watching. No expectations. Expect the Eagles to take care of Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. But if they don't, we're tied for first place, right? But I expect them to take care of business and be 2-0 and lead in this division. And, you know, what's kind of interesting is now, you know, I don't know what this season's going to be for us. Obviously, small sample size, only 2 games in. But I'm starting to eyeball other teams around the conference. Like, Atlanta was supposed to be really good. They're not. But the Saints have started out really good, so they might just be taking the place of Atlanta because I thought the Falcons were going to be really good, and I thought the Saints were going to be solid, competing in that division, but wouldn't get it done. And again, they could start off like gangbusters, and then by the time we get to week 8, the Saints are 4-4 and they're struggling, right? You just never know. And it's a week-to-week league, and things can change very rapidly. But the Falcons were supposed to be good. They're not good right now. They don't win tonight. They're 0-2. You know how tough it is to bounce back from 0-2 in the NFL. And so I'm just saying I'm eyeballing the rest of the conference. Lions lost, right? All of a sudden, this NFC South that we talked shit about, 2-0 Bucks, 2-0 Saints, right? Some big wins on the road for each of those 2 teams in week 2. You know, 49ers 1-1, Vikings 2-0, right? Packers 2-0. So you're looking around the conference and saying, can some of these teams keep that up? Don't know. But shit could be wide open is what I'm trying to get to. Anyway, it's early. You know, it's early. But it just feels good to be in the win column. I do know that. Never too early for that. Anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Have a good one. And I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully, I'll see you tonight for Monday Night Football overtime. Eagles and Falcons.
Here comes the Diesel. Here comes the Diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone.